Answer all your questions. Just know that we are all in this thing together. And the only way to get through this is together.
Good morning, everybody. That was the newest clip from the series called From. And it's about a group of people trapped in an evil alternate reality. Trapped inside the confines of a small town. A small town in between a city or cities. And there's that phrase again, right? We're all in this together. Now, we've heard this phrase several times now. And we heard it at the beginning of the pandemic, and we all figured out that it was really about to get her instead of together. Now, thank you everybody for showing up to yesterday's show, and apologies for the numerical error on the number of days between the death of the Queen and the coronation. It's 240 days, which is 60 plus 60 plus 60 plus 60, and I left one of the 60s off accidentally. So it's actually 6666 is the number of days between the death of the Queen and the coronation, which is still significant because you have the 66 and the 66, a number that we've gone over at length as it relates to the pandemic and all kinds of other things. Now, what else is going on? Well, I want to talk about, many of you have noticed you're seeing ads in the chat here or while you're watching the live show. As you know, here on YouTube, there's a constant battle with the algorithms just to be seen on YouTube. The algorithms even decide if you're going to get a notification in your subscription feed or even a notification to this live show. They control everything. They also unsubscribe people from the channel without their knowledge. And all of these things make the channel stay small, or they constantly are knocking off the momentum that the channel begins to build as we move through these shows. It's a miracle that we even can gain subscribers anymore, but we do. But even when we do, the viewership just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And it's not because the work is any less accurate. In fact, the work's gotten better. Many of you will agree. We've gotten more accurate. The work's gotten better. And all of our technical issues have gotten better. So why would the channel get smaller and smaller? It doesn't make any sense to me. So the only way that I've found to stay above water with the channel is to allow the ads that you see on the channel. Because YouTube is running a business, aren't they? And when there are no ads on your channel, they don't want people watching those channels where YouTube's not making any money. So this is why there's ads on the channel. And there's no other way to get the channel promoted than to do that. That's just the way it has to be. So that is why you see ads enabled on this channel, just like the ads that you see on other channels on YouTube that are not in our community, like fishing videos, sewing videos, whatever you're into. When you pull up a channel, you're going to see ads on it. I honestly don't understand what the big deal is for some people. Maybe they don't expect to see it on a truth channel. I don't understand. But if it bothers you, there are solutions. Now, there's the Brave browser, which I don't actively promote anymore, after I realized that basically it was helping to push the crypto narrative and blockchain and all that. So I don't put a link to it. I don't have it as a sponsor on this channel anymore. God told me to take down all the sponsors on this channel. That was the instruction that he gave me for this time period on this channel. But having said that, the Brave browser is a great tool to erase ads on YouTube, at least on desktop. I don't know what it does with mobile, but if you have a desktop or a tablet and you download the Brave browser, all you got to do is type in Brave browser and you can download it. It will erase all the ads on your YouTube experience. So there's one solution. There's also YouTube Red. I know some of you have that. You pay YouTube like $20 a month and it erase all your ads for you. And if all else fails, the entire channel is backed up on ODYSEE. Every single day, probably within a few hours, the daily shows go on to ODYSEE ad-free. So you can just go onto there and watch the whole show with no ads on it. Now, the ads on this channel and your monthly pledges through the fundraiser, and all these links are in the description, that's my only source of income on YouTube. And I don't like to put the burden of how I make my income on you guys, which is why I almost never ever ask you to sign up for the monthly membership. The links are there. Every once in a while I'll mention it, but it's not a daily thing where I'm like, hey guys, help me, make money on YouTube. I don't do that. And I do that intentionally because it's not your responsibility to support me. It's only for people that are able. I don't ever want to put pressure on people and go, hey, if you don't support me, I'm not going to be on YouTube. Like that's not what we're supposed to be doing, right? So outside of that, that leaves just the ads that you see on my videos. And it isn't much that YouTube gives for the amount of work that we do on this channel, but it's something. So please bear with me and the YouTube structure for now. It's just the way YouTube works. And for me, skipping ads has really never bothered me. That doesn't bother me because it's just the platform. It's the way YouTube works. I'd much rather do that than watch a channel pushing multiple sponsors that they don't even really believe in. They're just basically pushing things because it's making them a buck. I'd much rather have just ads running and that you could skip. Anyway, that's the update on why you're starting to see ads on this channel and during the live shows as well. It's just basically make the algorithms, force them to promote our channel, sometimes even in the recommended section of YouTube, so that the word gets out to as many people as possible. Now, today, we're going to get between the headlines. Now, it's been a while, and these are some of your favorite shows, getting between the headlines. We get to laugh a little bit, right? We get to laugh at the hypocrisy and the silliness of what the controllers are actually doing and how ridiculous they are. Now, this is a huge story. This is Insider. And I missed this one. I can't believe I missed this story. But this really reveals the agenda. This is Donald Trump Jr. And basically, the people spoke when Bud Light left nothing untainted with its trans marketing. And people are like, what's the big deal? Well, here's the thing. They don't like the people to speak, do they? They don't like the people to speak with their wallets. That is the only variable that these people can't control, right? They can try to brainwash people to speak with their wallets, but when they're pushing an agenda that they know is not popular, then what ends up happening is people decide with their wallets and they won't buy certain things. Now understand that these brands, okay, this is just one brand of Budweiser. Bud Light is just one brand, but people are upset. People are probably not even buying regular Budweiser or all the other Budweiser products. But understand that these companies are diversified. So it's not just Bud Light they're making. They're probably making sodas and everything else. So this is just a small portion of their overall income. But they can't stand it when we have some power in the way we consume things. Okay? And so therefore, look at what they've done. Donald Trump Jr. calls for an end to the conservative-led boycott of Bud Light and iconic Anheuser-Busch over a partnership with trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney. So, sometimes people want things like beer to just stay beer, don't they? They can market all they want for cross-dressing clothes, makeup tutorials, which are all over YouTube. They can do that if they want, but why do they insist on this stuff being everywhere? Why do they have to touch every part of American culture and products? Sounds a bit like programming to me, doesn't it? So, this is where things get weird. Why is Donald Trump Jr. standing up for the end of the boycott? That doesn't make any sense to me. So, in other words, he's telling you how to think, and the source of who's telling us to do it is just weird. Why Donald Trump Jr.? I thought Trump family is supposed to represent America, the core of America. The guys that go to baseball games and football games who drink Bud Light because it's cheap beer and they can get a lot of it and have an experience, right? And these guys are going directly against that. And they're risking it all. They're risking it all, like risking their image of being the real American by doing this. Now, there are all kinds of conspiracies as to why they're taking this risk. Some say that they have financial interest in Bud Light, and that's why they're doing this. But this just goes to show you how out of touch a lot of these politicians and people are that we think are on our side. Now, sadly, the brainwashing is pretty deep, and those who are lost in the right-left paradigm, they will continue to make excuses for these types of actions, and the actions on people on both sides. Same people that on the left that are making excuses for Biden not being tough on environmental stuff and not shutting down big oil right away like he said he was going to do. Okay? Because the right-left paradigm is what keeps people asleep to any real change, because they make excuses for their own side. So all the controllers have to do is swing the pendulum the other way and then get all the things done they want to get under the other side. You see how this works? And this is what concerns me about what we think, or what we're told, are conservative politicians. Now, this same mentality allowed Trump to make the smack the nation that ended up being forced on most of America, didn't it? Because we don't hold our politicians accountable. A smack the nation that every day we're hearing more and more stories about, more and more side effects, aren't we? Let's read a little bit about what Donald Trump Jr. said and did about this. I'll check in with you guys. Oh, cool. We have a new channel member. Thank you, M. Mash. Thank you so much. Let's keep going with this. Donald Trump Jr. This was April 16th. So it was a couple weeks ago. I missed this totally. Calling for the end of a conservative-led boycott against Bud Light, which is owned by Anheuser-Busch, over the parent company's partnership with the trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney. During an April 13th broadcast of his Triggered podcast, eldest son of former President Trump, addressed the controversy that has become a new cultural front in the political right's increasingly vocal criticism of transgender issues. Well, it's not that we're criticizing the transgender issues. It's that it's not happening organically. Okay, that's the problem. This agenda is being forced into our TV shows, movies, television, and it's disproportionate to the true representation of that activity in our society. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, let me give you an example. As a person of color, what if you started seeing like half the TV shows on TV were only all black cast members? You'd be like, that doesn't represent America. What's going on here? Why are they, even if you're not a person who has a racist bone in your body, you would be like, that's just weird. Like, why are they doing that? Right? It's disproportionate to the actual cross-section of our American society, which suggests that there is an agenda that is being pushed. Now, you could argue, oh, well, that's because they want more black awareness. Okay, you might get away with that argument, but the trans agenda is a much different thing. And I hate when they lump the trans agenda in with racial issues. It makes absolutely no sense to me, because the two are apples and oranges. They have nothing to do with each other. Okay? Yes, they're minority groups, but one is you're born with it, and the other is a choice, kind of. So they're completely different in my eyes, and they've done this on purpose to muddy the waters, right? Now, what is going on with this? Well, let's keep reading here. Trump Jr., who frequently rails against what he deems as woke influencers in American society, is usually fighting alongside conservatives on many issues, but he broke away from the movement as it related to Anheuser-Busch. I'm not for destroying an iconic company for something like this. Well, we didn't do it. And Budweiser never apologized or retracted what they tried to do. They got completely out of touch with their base. Okay, that's the problem. The company itself doesn't participate in the same leftist nonsense as the other big conglomerates, so there he goes with the right-left paradigm. Okay, he said, arguing that the Anheuser-Busch had a conservative lean in the political donations. Well, there you go. He said it right there. They're, so they've been donating or something to, the right, but then all of a sudden now they're doing left-leaning things to try to be more inclusive, right? According to Open Secrets, Anheuser-Busch and individuals affiliated with the company donated $500,000 to the National Republican Senatorial Committee in the 2022 election cycle. Now, understand that these reported numbers are probably just a small portion of the actual amount of money that goes out to these politicians on the right. Okay, they're just showing you what was reported. So, weird, right? Now, like I said, very few people are going to fall away from the Trump camp because of this. They'll simply justify it in their minds and say, oh, maybe we should move on from this, because it's coming out of Donald Trump Jr.'s mouth. Now, let's keep going. There's more headlines today. Look at this next story. This is out of the Telegraph. Now, this is silly because after telling us for several decades that veganism is a lifestyle choice that can be equal to or greater than, in terms of health, than a meat eater, now all of a sudden, meat is crucial for human health, scientists warn. Really? Now, why now? Why are they changing their tune? Well, this is gaslighting, right? So all the people that, maybe their health suffered over the years because they made this lifestyle choice, didn't know why, they blamed it on everything else. Now, I'm not saying this for a fact is happening, but this is just one of my thought processes behind this. Now, it's like gaslighting. So this gives people no hope. It makes them crazy psychologically. Let's read this. Meat is crucial for human health, scientists have warned, as they called for an end to the zealotry pushing vegetarian and vegan diets. Dozens of experts were asked to look into the science behind claims that meat eating causes disease and is harmful for the planet in a special issue of Animal Frontiers. They warned that it's difficult to replace the nutritional content of meat, arguing that poor communities with low meat intake often suffer from stunting, wasting, and anemia, driven by a lack of vital nutrients and protein. Now, as many of you know, I was a vegetarian for I think it was 3 years solid. I think we tried it. It was during my first marriage. And it was because I was part of the Seventh-day Adventist religion at that point. And my ex-wife was into it and the church was into it. And we tried to eat vegetarian. But here's the problem. Unless you have a ton of money, you are not going to be able to make the right combinations of foods to get the proper nutrition, and or your body might not know how to process the amount of foods and the combinations that you're going to need to get the same result by eating protein. In other words, you have to make special protein combinations. And I can tell you, for a matter of fact, after going to probably 1,000 potlucks after the Seventh-day Adventist Church and all of the meals that we shared with other people at their homes that were all vegetarian, there was almost never the proper combination of foods. It was heavily weighted with cheeses, these kinds of things. And, there just wasn't the proper nutrients. There was a lot of carbs, a lot of casseroles. And it's delicious food. It was good food, but definitely not creating the kinds of proteins that you would need. Now, I know that there are some very, very granola people out there that know exactly how to combine these things, but I think they would even have to be honest and say most vegetarians are not eating like that. They're not combining the right foods to get the protein that they need. And you have to eat so much of it to get the protein that you need that your body just can't produce it. It just can't. Okay. So this is the problem. Now they're starting to admit this. Okay, and the people who suffer are the people in the poor communities, like you said, like I just said, who cannot create these food combinations because it's just too expensive. I mean, who can afford nuts and seeds? You know how much nuts cost? Nuts are like $20-$30 for a bag of nuts these days. So you can't even buy the nuts. It's much easier just to buy, $6 worth of ground beef that's going to give you the same protein. And not to mention, can your body even eat that many nuts without, will it adjust to it and things like this? So there are lots of factors here going on with this. Not to say that a diet that is largely based in vegetables and fruits and vegetarian isn't good for you, because it absolutely is. It can cut down on heart disease, but to say that you're never going to eat meat again could cause a problem for some people, is what I'm saying here. Let's keep reading this article here and see what the agenda is behind this, because there probably is an agenda behind this. They warn that it is difficult to replace the nutritional content of meat, arguing that poor communities with low meat intake often suffer from stunting, wasting, and anemia driven by a lack of vital nutrients and protein. In recent years, there has been a widespread societal push towards plant-based diets, which schemes such as veganuary and meat-free Mondays encouraging the public away from meat. The major global burden of diseases, injuries, and risk factor studies published in The Lancet 2020 also suggested that diet high in red meat was responsible for 900,000 deaths worldwide and was the fifth leading dietary risk factor. But researchers argue that unprocessed meat delivers most of the vitamin B12 intake in human diets, plays a major role in supplying retinol, omega-3 fatty acids, and minerals such as iron and zinc, as well as important compounds for metabolism, such as taurine and creatine. Fatally scientifically flawed. In one paper published in the issue, experts found no good evidence to support red meat being dangerous below intakes of 75 grams per day, and argued that the link between red meat and disease vanished when part of a healthy diet suggested it was the rest of the diet that was fueling health problems. So, there you go. They're upgrading the standards here. And as long as you don't overdo it on the meat, and you exercise, and the rest of your diet isn't horrible, you're probably going to be okay in terms of heart disease, is what they're saying now, which almost everybody already knew, but they were really pushing the vegetarian diet. Now, what does this mean for our future? Because they're trying to do away with meat, aren't they? They're trying to name red meat as one of the number one environmental factors that's causing global warming. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this shakes out in the coming days and weeks in terms of what appears to be a collision course of ideologies and the reality of what they're going to do in the future in terms of the environment. Seems like these two are diametrically opposed to one another, doesn't it? What they're now saying and what they're saying about the environment. So, interesting times nonetheless, right? Now, here's an interesting story. ESPN accidentally showed stock footage during halftime show for all the way back on Blind 11, and you could see the towers in the background. I'm going to play this, and the first thing I noticed was this graphic here. I'll just play this for you. This is unbelievable.
This halftime report is presented by MetaQuest. Wish for the extraordinary.
So it's a halftime report, MetaQuest, which of course is Facebook, right? Facebook Meta. And look at this.
This halftime.
It's an aperture. It's a portal. The lens of the camera. Now, we've always been saying that Blind 11 was a portal of human sacrifice. Was this an accident that this aired, or was it the truth? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that not only are the towers doubled,
this halftime report,
but they show a reflection, a mirror image of Lady Liberty. Little Lady Liberty and Big Lady Liberty. Wow. So there's always something to this stuff. A lot of people were upset about this. They're like, why couldn't you have updated this? Why didn't this stock footage, why wasn't it played before? Why all of a sudden was it played? Let's read this. ESPN apologizes for pre-Blind 11 stock footage of New York City during the Heat Knicks game. April 30th, 2023. ESPN used some very, very old footage of New York City during the New York Knicks game against Miami Heat on Sunday afternoon. Network during the broadcast of the Heat's 108-101 win in the Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinal series at Madison Square Garden. So, is there any symbolism, spiritual symbolism about it being the Knicks and the Heat? Well, I don't know. I know there was a lot of heat on that day. And so I guess we'll have to see. But it says here it's a very normal thing to do to have this kind of stock footage. But at the bottom of the screen, fans quickly noticed the old World Trade Center in the background. The two buildings known as the two towers that collapsed on Blind 11. That means that the footage ESPN used is at least more than 2 decades old. Wow. So there's Steph Curry, Meta Quest halftime show. So weird, isn't it? Meta, sponsoring this stuff. Nobody likes Meta. Meta is lame. And remember, it was supposed to be the end of Facebook. Remember all that? Of course, Facebook's going strong as ever with their Meta programming. And they like to do these gaslighting rituals in some of these companies and politicians to make it look like it's the end, to make it look like they've overcome all odds. And then they don't go anywhere. They're still around, right? So this is what's going on with ESPN. Let me check in with you guys. We'll get into some more of these headlines. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We'll do a little Q&A at the end of the show. Let me get through these headlines first. Now, they're still not letting up on the gas stoves. Look at this. Gas stoves, you guys, were around long before there was any asthma boom, right? Long before the 80s when the asthma boom began and all the children had to have inhalers. But yet, here they're starting to blame, again, gas stoves on asthma, heart disease, and cancer. Maybe that's why this is an opinion piece, because they know it's hogwash. Now, I won't belabor the issue anymore on this show, because we've talked a lot about the attack on gas stoves, but they keep hammering in the fear factor, don't they? Boy, this guy needs some teeth whitening. Oh boy. So, this is the future, the electric kingdom. And guess what? The electric kingdom has now gone radioactive. What are you talking about, Casey? Well, guess what? Bo Jiven thinks that a country full of nuclear reactors is safer than natural gas. Can you believe this? Oh, you won't get asthma and cancer and stuff from natural gas, but let's just radiate everybody. I mean, this is right out of Wormwood, you guys. The poisoning of a third of the waters. Let's read this. No other way to do it. Biden about to go big on power plants. Now, we all knew this was coming because the big joke was, how are you going to create all this electricity for the electric kingdom? And we all knew that it came from natural gas. That's the only way you can produce electricity is natural gas. Solar and wind was just lame. There wasn't enough. You can't put enough windmills up to create that much electricity. And the windmills are very invasive. They're large. They're ugly. They kill birds. And so it just wasn't feasible. But they made it seem feasible, didn't they? Oh, and they gave all these rebates to these companies. Companies sprang up out of nowhere to make windmills. And they're putting them all around the ocean. And then somebody woke up and said, Hey, Bo Jiven, we're going to have to put 6 million windmills around the entire east and west coast to get enough energy for your electricity plan. And I don't think the people are going to like it very much. I mean, that's probably what happened. And so now here we are, and they're like, okay, we'll just build a bunch of nuclear power plants to build our electric kingdom. You guys, we're going backwards, aren't we? We are going backwards. Let's read this. The Bo Jiven administration is poised to unveil its most ambitious effort yet to roll back planet warming pollution from the nation's thousands of power plants. So we won't destroy the world with greenhouse gases. We'll just destroy it with a bunch of nuclear power plants that create endless amounts of radioactivity that needs to be buried in the earth and kill all the oceans. It's unbelievable. An effort that's certain to bring a legal and political attack from conservatives, but may disappoint some supporters of the president's climate agenda. The proposal from EPA, expected to be formally unveiled this week, makes key trade-offs in its efforts to slash the power industry's greenhouse gas output without running afoul of a skeptical Supreme Court, according to the 4 people briefed on the upcoming regulations. EPA is expected to rely on advanced technologies rarely if ever employed in the U.S. power industry, such as capturing coal plants' carbon pollution before it hits the atmosphere or blending hydrogen into the fuel mix at natural gas plants. But it could also exempt hundreds of nations' dirtiest gas plants from strict pollution limits, these people said. That may lessen the rule's legal peril, keep more units online, but it may also provide fewer benefits to the low-income Black or Hispanic communities where the dirtiest plants are disproportionately located. The proposal will be the capstone of Bo Jiven's climate efforts before he faces voters next year, follows historically aggressive pollution standards his agency have proposed for oil and gas, cars, and other industries. If it succeeds, the rule will transform the U.S. economy by accelerating the dwindling of coal as a major power source, just as EPA's proposals to limit car and truck pollution aim to spur a rapid shift to electric vehicles. Supporters say Bo Jiven has no choice but to go big. Biden will need both the power plant and automobile rules to reach his climate goals. Oh boy. So, we need to go further. As a presidential candidate, Bo Jiven promised to cut economy's carbon emissions in half by 2030 compared with 2005. So, they need power plants, you guys. This is our future. This is unbelievable. The power plant rule could make up the difference. When it comes to carbon pollution, the IRA made a significant down payment, said Sam Rickles. So, I guess we'll have to see in the coming days and weeks, but there was no way they were going to get all this power with the way that they told us that they were going to do it. Now, here's a creepy article. Here we go. Let's back up a little bit. A new nuclear reactor in the U.S. started up in March, so there's already one online. Country's first in nearly 7 years. Here it is. New nuclear reaction in the U.S. started up in March. Georgia Power. Wow. So Georgia has a nuclear power plant, a brand new nuclear power plant. Wow. Now, here, the New York Times finally admits how creepy the Denver airport's demon horse is. Look at this. A towering, terrifying demon horse isn't even the weirdest part. So this is gaslighting, right? Because everyone was trying to say this was super weird. And for so many years, everyone said, oh, that's not weird. But let's read about what they're saying here. Mustang, a 32-foot tall sculpture by the artist Luis Jimenez, that is also known as Lucifer, oh boy, stands outside the Denver International Airport in Denver on February 23rd, 2023. Look at this. 223, that's 322 backwards. 2023, that's 322 backwards as well, right? So these people know what's going on. Look at Lucifer. Let's read this here. Some people wonder if It is actually the pale horse of the apocalypse. The one ridden by death. Equine art lives in many airports. Seattle and San Francisco have bronze horses shaped like driftwood. Central Illinois has wire horses suspended from the ceiling. Tucson, Arizona has a winged horse. And Barcelona, Spain has a burly horse. None of them have a horse like Lucifer, rearing 32 feet high in the median outside Denver International Airport. The cobalt-colored, demon-eyed, vein-streaked steed has terrified travelers and mobilized conspiracy theorists since it arrived 15 years ago. First, though, it's killed its creator. Whoa. Artist Luis Jimenez designed the statue, officially known as Mustang, to make reference to Mexican murals and the energy of the Southwest, with glowing red eyes meant as an homage to his father's neon workshop. Oh yeah, because a demonic horse would exactly be what you would make an art piece out of, right? To represent that. Wow. The horse came to stand for something darker in 2006 as Jimenez was finishing the 9,000-pound cast fiberglass sculpture. A piece came loose and fatally severed an artery in his leg. Oh boy. A giant murderous stallion makes sense as a mascot for an airport with notoriety to spare. Or a nearby art installation can be misconstrued as a portrayal of the COVID-19 virus and a rumor that a humanoid reptilian race lives under the facility can surface on popular sitcom Abbott Elementary. Actor Macaulay Culkin, famous for navigating the horror of Manhattan during the holiday season, tweeted that the Denver airport is the scariest place I've ever been in my life. Boy. In recent American history, mass delusions about election fraud and baseless rumors about the pandemic and environmental disasters have burrowed into mainstream discourse and the top echelons of government authority. Oh yeah, that's because, it's 99% effective. Oh, you'll never get VidCo-19 if you get stuck with these two things. Oh, maybe you will get it. Oh, you'll get it, but you'll just have less side effects. Maybe that's why people are a little bit skeptical. Technology continues to warp reality. Conspiracy theories about nefarious political and racist plots have been cited by writers at the U.S. Crapper Hole and perpetrators of mass scrootings. The Denver airport is far less terrifying, not so much a society shaking us all on truth, more an ongoing experiment into whether sometimes institutional fabulism can just be fun. Oh yeah, because Satanism is just fun. We're just having fun. Wow. The crazy thing is they don't even mention the murals inside. That maybe that's why people are a little freaked out, because you got the horse out front, the murals inside. There's a picture that emerges. Why not put kittens and elephants and things like that inside? Why does it have to be death and destruction? And it's just weird. The Denver airport tall tales tend not to be particularly dangerous or politically salient, drawing instead from a persistent fascination with extraterrestrials. So they're just gaslighting here, right? They're picking all the extremes. A lot of the stuff I don't even believe in, but they're focusing on the extreme parts of the belief systems of awake people to push their agenda to discredit people. Now, you have to ask yourself, why are they gaslighting now? Is there something to come? Is there something that got leaked and they're trying to cover it up? Why are they doing this story now? That is the question as we read between the headlines. Now, because of our between the headline research, we've made certain assertions about the future of diesel fuel. We anticipated that they were going to come after diesel fuel before they came after diesel fuel. And we thought that maybe all these train derailments and the leaking diesel fuel was to spark off the end to diesel fuel. Well, here we are. It is now official. They are now coming after diesel fuel, just as we said they probably would. Here is the headline. Now, this story is dated April 27th, but we were already talking about this long before this. California passes the first in nation emission rules for trains. So it's happening. Diesel-powered trains are now on the chopping block. California approved Thursday a first-in-nation ambitious rule limiting rail pollution to aggressively cut greenhouse gas emissions in the state's latest move to establish itself as a global leader in the fight against climate change. The rule will ban locomotive engines more than 23 years old by 2030 and increase the use of zero-emissions technologies to transport freight from ports and throughout rail yards. It would also ban locomotives in the state from idling longer than 30 minutes if they are equipped with an automatic shutoff. So what's this going to mean for you and I? Well, it's going to mean the higher, much higher cost of goods. Expect something that you're paying a certain amount for now on Amazon to double in price, which is what we said was going to happen. So I told you guys, buy the things that you need now. If you need a hammer, if you need, a chainsaw, if you need all these things that are going to help you survive, that you're going to wish you had, that you can't afford in 2 years, you should get it now, because all this equates to much higher inflation of everyday items. Wow. So this is what's going on in California. And of course, what goes for California goes for the rest of the nation eventually. Just like with gay marriage, it started in California and advanced to the rest of the nation. Just like they tried to do during COVID, where, California and New York were very, very strict and harsh on their rules. And they tried to spread that out over the rest of the nation as well. Let's read. Good riddance to diesel. Time for big trucks and trains to go clean in California. California struck a major blow against air pollution in 1967 with Reagan signing into legislation to create the agency known as the California Air Resources Board. Since then, the state has achieved a number of innovations nationally in the quest for cleaner air, first emission standards, requirements for catalytic converters, mandates for check engine diagnostic lights on the dashboard, zero-emission vehicles, regulations, and greenhouse gas standards for cars. But now comes a new milestone, the nation's first requirement for big rig trucks and trains to transition from diesel engines to zero-emission motors. The board approved those steps at its April meeting, and the significance was not lost on Air Board member Gideon Krakoff, environmental lawyer from Los Angeles. 10 years from now, when we look back to this day, we can say that California has changed the world. We can say that California did this right. Wow. Now, many people will think, we'll just elect Trump and he'll reverse all this. Wrong. Once this stuff is set in place, it will not go back. This is why they had to swing the pendulum back to Bo driving, which will force people to want to vote for Trump to correct the error, to correct the mistake, thinking that he's going to reverse all this stuff, and he won't. Mark my words, he will not reverse this, because this is part of the Electric Kingdom agenda. This is what they want. He'll say that he's going to try, but then it won't get done. So they're coming for diesel trains. They're coming for diesel trucks. And this is what I believe was the purpose of these derailments, to show how dangerous diesel is, right? Every single story we'd read about a train derailment, they would talk about how the diesel fuel was spilling. And this was a big clue, in my opinion. Let's go back into the chat. Make sure you guys are still with me. And we'll keep going with the rest of this show. Because next, we're going to talk about this weird shovel that Trump pulled out in Scotland in his visit to Scotland. Pulled out a shovel of dirt. Now, if you haven't already, if you haven't seen my Scottish prophecy videos on Trump, you might want to go check out that playlist after the show. Because in those playlists, we talk about Clan MacLeod and the Highlander series, which, of course, MacLeod is the family name of Trump's mother from Scotland. We also talk about the Standing Stones of Callanish, which was featured in the the series Outlander, which was all about Trump as well. Scottish Prophecy, Dune. It's all there, you guys. So what happened? Well, according to Newsweek, Trump wielding a shovel full of dirt during Scotland trip goes viral. Let's see. Let's see if this plays it here. No sound. Oh my God. So there's Trump's mother, McLeod. I believe the whole Outlander series was based off of her. She's got some kind of... This is where I believe this whole time travel thing came from. I think it came through his mother. Remember we talked about the house that was burned on fire? The burning house called the Trump House. And it was two dueling clans. The Trumps versus the McDonalds, I believe. If I remember correctly. And they burned this church to the ground with the people inside. Okay. So all this has got much history. Even the globe with the cross on top originated out of this Tweed. And this is the factory that they say his mother worked at this Tweed factory. Let's look it up. Harris Tweed from the Isle of Harris. And here is their logo. Well, let's find it. I should have spoke too soon. Here it is. So this was featured at the coronation, wasn't it? Now, apparently, one of you sent me the explanation as to what this ball actually means. And they talked about it as Prince or King Charles was receiving this orb with a cross on top. In the commentary of the newscast that was covering it, they said that these three sectors of the orb represent what they thought were the three continents of the world. Before there were three continents, before they found the rest of the continents. So, according to Trump's own mother, she worked at Harris Tweed. That was her only job on the Isle of Lewis, but it was on the Isle. This is called Harris Tweed because Harris and Lewis are basically, the islands are connected, but they're given two separate names, if that makes any sense. But this is the wool. They make the wool. Remember all that we've talked about the wool. Because it's all about the shearing of the sheep, isn't it? It always has been. The baldness caused by the poker. Alopecia. Alopecia found Artemis under a willow tree. Artemis, of course, was Trump's space program. Do you see how all this stuff goes all the way back to the beginning? So this is Harris Tweed. Now you see the link to King Charles. There's also an Economist cover that shows Trump holding one of these. And I know that a lot of other kings and rulers have been pictured in antiquity holding one of these, but I think you can all admit that this is specific to what's happening right now. Now let's keep going here. So apparently he was there for the dedication of this new golf course to his mother. Oh boy. So there he is with the shovel full of dirt. Let's play this. He's got a Smurf hat on. This is unbelievable. Wait. Are you kidding me? Look at the windmills in the background. I didn't know they had windmills off the coast of Scotland. Are you kidding me? So there was a big battle back then of these resorts and these golf courses. A lot of people did not want them to be there, but of course it's pushed through. We know that Trump was knighted in Scotland And he has a lot of power there, and that's because he has a lot of power. We've talked about that and how he is much more than he lets on in terms of spiritual ramifications. There's much more to the Trump story. All we see is the very surface, but it actually goes much, much deeper, all the way back to the Future and Biff and all that stuff. It all relates together. Wow. So, now what he said there was he was making fun of the press. Let's read this. A video showing former President Donald Trump holding a shovelful of dirt in eastern Scotland has gone viral on Twitter after the Republican appeared to joke that he would throw the dirt at the journalists. Twitter account Patriot Takes, which describes itself in part as a researchers monitoring and exposing right-wing extremism, shared a brief video of the moment, which has been viewed more than 75,000 times as of early Tuesday morning. Trump was wielding the shovel as he broke ground on a new Scottish golf course, which is dedicated to his late mother, at the Trump International Scotland course at the Meany Estate in Aberdeenshire. Look at the wordplay here. I remember when my daughter was little, if someone was mean, she would call them a meanie. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but so former U.S. President Donald Trump disembarks his plane, Trump Force One, at Aberdeen Airport on May 1st. Oh, there is that Illuminati highest day of sacrifice, May 1st. In the 9-second clip, Trump can be seen wearing a blue hat and holding a small amount of dirt on a shovel. And we throw it at the press, right in their faces. We throw it right in their faces, the former president said, eliciting some laughs from those present. The new golf course is named for Trump's mother, Marianne McLeod, who was born on the Isle of Lewis in the Western Isles and immigrated to the U.S., where she married Fred Trump. This project is very close to my heart, and I'm delighted to say that this is our first day of work on the new course. So he's building another golf course. He's already got, I think, one or two, and then he's building another. So, if you haven't seen my decodes on Dune, and the Dune movies, which relate directly into all this as well, that might be something you might want to take a look at. It will be dedicated to my late mother, and that is a source of great pride to me and my family. My mother was an incredible woman who loved Scotland. She returned here every year. She loved the Queen. I got to know the Queen, too, during my visits here. I love Scotland just as much. So, there you go. There's the link back to the orb and cross. He mentions the Queen. Trump is expected to travel to Ireland on Wednesday to visit his golf course in the western village of Doonbeg, County Clare, and the Irish Mirror report on Tuesday that Trump had wanted to visit the Trump International Golf Links and Hotel weeks before Bo Jiven's visit to Ireland in April. However, an earlier visit could not take place because Trump was indicted in Manhattan, where he pleaded not guilty to 34 charges related to his alleged hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. He was due to come along with a huge group of his buddies for a golf trip. A U.S. security source told the Irish Mirror it was planned for up to 3 days, but because of court proceedings, Trump couldn't make it, and it was all canceled. So, weird times. We have a video where we just talked about how Trump and Biden's ancestors crossed paths right here in these very places where both men just visited. In that video, we showed that Bydun was his name, Bydun, was the Chancellor of the King of Scotland at that time, and that he prosecuted Trump's ancestor and jailed him. Remember that? Going back all the way to Olaf the Black and before, which were our Trump's ancestors. So, it's all happening now. Biden is prosecuting Trump. There's nothing new under the sun. Now, on to the next story. The bar just keeps going lower and lower and lower with the smack of the nation. Pretty soon, the odds are just going to be ridiculous, aren't they? Vidco smack the nation protection against infection drops after 6 months. Protection against severe disease strong. Really? Now we're just down to it just prevents severe disease when you get it. Wow. So we all knew that was going to happen as well. It just took some time for them to finally admit it. And many of you will remember, on to the next story here, in 2020, Trump signed 5G, 6G, and beyond. Now, he said it was to compete with China, didn't he? He's like, hey, we got to compete with China, so we need to develop our internet infrastructure. Now, seems like Bo Jiven is carrying the torch as the U.S. begins planning for 6G wireless communications. Biden administration aims to reassert U.S. leadership in telecom, an area where China has made gains. So it's the same message. They announced this on the 111th day of the year, April 21st, which is the anti-date of September 11th, because that date has 111 days remaining in the year. So Bo Jiven's carrying the torch, isn't he? So all of our brains could turn into scrambled eggs. 6G and beyond. Let's read this. The Bo Jiven administration is beginning to plan for 6G wireless telecommunications, seeking to expand internet access while reasserting U.S. leadership in a sector where China has notched gains. The White House on Friday will meet with corporate, government, and academic experts to begin developing goals and strategies for new 6G communications technology, which would have the ability to take cloud computing and mobile internet to true global ubiquity, among other improvements. Now, what this means is real-time surveillance state. That's what these networks do and allow for, because you don't have any backlogs. You have real-time data. You can stream video pretty much instantaneously. And this is the real reason why they're pushing this technology, to complete another facet of the electric kingdom, which is surveillance. And if you think that, oh, I don't have anything to worry about because I'm not doing anything wrong, well, guess what? Have you ever tried hunting and fishing? Don't you think it's weird how as soon as you show up to a spot, fishing game is there within 10 minutes? You guys, they have trail cams. They have surveillance. They're only going to become more efficient as these kind of networks come online that allow for a much, much more real-time surveillance. And that's just one facet of the surveillance state, which is wildlife. There are many other facets. And the things that you think, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm a lawful person, well, pretty soon the laws are not going to be fair. Right? Think about it. What if you're burning a fire in your yard on your acreage and it's not fire season yet? And because of real-time surveillance, you've got to knock on your door and a $500 fine from the government. Things like that, right? Now, let's keep reading here. The next generation of telecom is still years away from deployment, but it could pave the way for global internet access still unavailable with the current 5G standard, which makes smartphone downloads and wireless hotspot connections faster. Expanding access to the internet has been a priority for the Bo Jiven administration as part of the infrastructure initiatives. Now, remember, this couldn't have been possible without Trump's legislation, right? So this is another example of how this is all bipartisan. This future plan for the world and our country is bipartisan. They just have us arguing over the little hot button issues that they've created to make you think that there's a choice, like the border, for instance, and other things. Let's keep reading here. The 6G Planning Initiative also aims to reassert the leadership of the U.S. and its allies in telecommunications. An administration official acknowledged that China used 5G effectively to advance its economic and national security goals. See, they admit it right here. National security goals, such as gaining global market share over the West for its telecom manufacturing companies, trying to really prioritize its telecom sector, and I think we may have to. So, there you go, you guys. Now, we have seen a massive drop in the birth rate of America, as we said there would be right around the time of the pandemic. Now, things were starting to drop off before the pandemic, but we told you this would be a thing, and now here it is. This is the New York Times and our last story for today. More U.S. women are avoiding unwanted or mistimed pregnancies. They're trying to say this is the reason why the birth rate has fallen. This dated May 3rd, 2023. Births and pregnancies in the U.S. have been on a long-term decline. A new data analysis provides one reason. Notice how they word this. That's only one reason. They're not talking about the other elephant in the room. It's becoming less common for women to get pregnant when they don't want to be. The analysis, released Thursday in the journal Demography by researchers at the Guttmacher Institute, estimates the number of pregnancies in the U.S. There is no single official count and examines women's feelings about the timing of their pregnancies. In the past, most demography surveys have asked if pregnancies were intended or not, but that approach missed nuances like whether a woman was ambivalent about being pregnant or wanted to be pregnant, but earlier or later. The new analysis covering 2009 to 2015 found that a growing majority of women said their pregnancies came at the right time, and uncovered a decline in the share of pregnancies that women didn't want or that happened too soon, a shift driven by young women. It has also found that a significant and increasing share of women, particularly those 35 and older, said they were getting pregnant later than they wanted. That just bolsters that idea that people have more control over their reproduction, especially in earlier ages. The new data is one of the clearest indications that the drop in fertility during the Great Recession was not just a temporary delay, as often happens in recessions. Instead, it seems to have coincided with a broader shift in what women want. So they're just saying, oh, it's because it's just women's choices. They're just deciding that they don't want to have children. Okay? But really, there's a much larger factor at play here. So, this is our future. This is the children of men scenario happening before our eyes. Now, we go back into the chat here. Tomorrow, we will be back to the Honey Milk Ranch. I'll be installing ground mounts for the mini splits. Cut down on the vibrations going onto the house, because right now they're mounted on the house. So I'll show you guys that project. And we're going to be doing a lot more Ozark shows at the Honey Milk Ranch. I'll be showing you guys underneath the house. I'll be showing you guys also how to clean gutters without climbing on a ladder. We'll also take a look inside the Honey Milk Ranch. And I want to show you guys the progress of the grass that I planted. Planted some fescue grass, and thanks for all the suggestions. You guys are like, you need to throw some soil on top of there or fertilizer or something. And now I'm starting to see grass shoots, so that's going to be beautiful. I have a little lawn back here. And if we find any snakes or beetles or anything else, I'll make sure and document that as well. So let's go into the chat for a bit before we sign off for today. Christina wants to see a re-upload of the Dune videos. Yeah, gosh, have we re-uploaded those recently? I thought we did a marathon on the Dune videos, but maybe we didn't. Maybe we'll upload those. People get a little upset when they think I'm picking on Trump. So I'm not sure we'll do those anytime soon. But it's just he's deceived the most Christians, and so this is why we did so many videos on him. All of it's true. A lot of it he's admitted to. He's even made little statements about Back to the Future and time travel and things over the years. He knows what's going on. So Anyone seen the Netflix show about the Ozarks? Yes, I did watch that series. Wasn't a lot to decode on that because mostly it's about drugs and money laundering and stuff. Someone spot me on the ladder so I don't fall. Thanks for the advice there. Guinea hens will help with the tick problem and other bugs. Yeah, thank you so much, Nature Nurture. I'm just after this project's like pretty much mostly done, I plan on not being around too much on the property. I mean, I want to travel. I want to go see my children and my mother. My mother's in her 70s. I haven't really spent a lot of time with her. And so I'm not going to be around the homestead a whole lot. And so when you buy these animals, you get these animals, they need to be cared for. You can't just like take off from your homestead because you need to feed these animals and keep them safe at night when the predators come around. And so that's why I've been holding back from getting cats or different animals on the property yet. Now, at some point, I'll settle in for the long haul after I've, done some traveling a bit, and I will get animals on the property. The neighbors are awesome. They do look after each other when they're gone, but I would feel weird asking a neighbor to come over here and feed cats and things like that. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with that. All right. What else is going on in here? They are not out of touch. Budweiser wants evil to thrive. Yep. That's pretty much it. Pull socks over my pants while I'm in the woods to prevent ticks. Yes, that's something that I've learned to do as well. I go Steve Urkel on it, and that keeps the ticks out. Maybe he was on to something with that. Thanks, Thomasina. Hope your mom is well. Yeah, she's doing well. I mean, she's in her 70s. She had a fall not too long ago, which is rare for her. But she gets overambitious sometimes, and she starts climbing on ladders and, tries to do too much, and she'll fall every once in a while. But she's a tough woman, my mom. So she healed from that, and she's doing okay now. So thanks, Vanessa. Samuel has 6 cats and 3 dogs. Wow. Oh, boy. Thomasine had a tick on her chest from the yard. Hang up stuffed brown paper bags will help with the hornets. Yeah, they're pretty much gone now. I had one on the video that I filmed of the homestead, and he came at me, but that was like weird. That was an anomaly because there are no nests. I've got all the nests gone. They weren't even able to establish nests in the spring because when they started coming around, sniffing around under the eaves, I was already spraying them and scaring them off. So, is there any land for sale by you? Asks Shalala. Yes, there's lots of land out here. There is acreage, but it's tripled in price. So I got 6 acres for $13,000, but now that 6 acres is going to cost you almost $40,000. Now you could get 1 or 2 acres for less, obviously, for a third of that, but I don't know how many plots there are. What I tell people is if you want to look, just go to landwatch.com and you can search by county, you can search by state, you can put in a price range of what you're willing to pay, and it will pull up all of the properties that are for sale. And it'll give you a phone number of a real estate agent you can call and talk to them about what you're looking for. Okay. And that's my best advice. Now, I'm going to repeat this because I think it's the most important thing in terms of looking for land. And that is you have to make sure there aren't any restrictions. And you need to talk to your real estate agent and find out exactly what restrictions there are, because this can make or break your experience and your plans for land. And yes, they do have restrictions in parts of Arkansas, but the further you go out in the country, there are no restrictions. So I'm in a county where there are no building codes. Now that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but you want to have that, because what happens with building codes is you have to have everything inspected. It has to be done by a certain group of people who have licenses. If you do not use a person that is licensed, you can get fined, get in trouble, have to tear everything out. Not to mention, the licensed people charge 2 to 3 times as much as an unlicensed person that might do just as good a work. So this is the problem. So you have to make sure that you get unrestricted land, and look into the codes and things, because you can have a very bad experience if you don't do that. So, all right. I think I've probably talked enough today. I love you guys, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care and be safe. Much love.